Welcome to the Madison Motor Podcast Special Edition Show, the 2023 NFL Season Predictions Show. This will be breaking down into three parts. The first part, which you're listening to right now, will be the projected standings, the playoffs, and the awards. Part 2 will be all the superlatives, such as best rookie, most improved, most disappointing players, etc. And part 3 will be futures, like all betting futures will be part 3. So all things betting will be part 3. So without further ado, let's get underway with the show. So the AFC East, a very interesting division to say the least. My pick to win this division with the record of 11-6. The Miami Dolphins. Yes, I'm going with an outside-of-the-box sort of pick here to win a division in Miami. I think that they're the most top-heavy team in the division. They have the best, or two of the best 4, 5, maybe even 3 wide receivers in the entire division, in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. This is obviously a bet on Tua staying healthy most of the year. Offensive line should be improved. Their defense is very top-heavy too, especially their secondary. They lose Jalen Ramsey for the first several months of the year, but they should get him back come playoff time. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins, and I think that Mike McDaniel did an excellent job in year one, coming in second in the division, also with the record of 11-6, and I have them getting a wild card spot, the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are probably the safer pick to win the division, but sometimes I like to go outside the box or go big or go home, and in this scenario, I did here. Josh Allen, obviously the best quarterback in the division. Questions with their running game. Maybe James Cook breaks out. Offensive line, solid most of the time. Rookie tight end and Dalton Kincaid, Stephon Diggs, and Josh Allen is that fool's gold that they were fighting and whatnot. Defense, pass rush is okay. Secondary is solid. The comeback of DeMar Hamlin is a wonderful story. So glad to see him back on the field. Granted, he is technically a second-string player, but he does see some time in regular games. So, the Bills, I think, are still a good football team, but I just think that division's very hard. And the thought that Miami almost beat them in the playoff game last year, the third-string quarterback, is alarming. Von Miller's out the first 4 games of the season. If he was there the first couple of games, maybe I would have picked the Bills to win their division and go 12-5 instead, but no, he's not there. So I decided to go with the Dolphins. Third place with the record of 9-8, I have the New York Jets. I do not have the Jets in the postseason, although it cannot be ruled out by any stretch of the imagination. I think their offensive line is a huge problem. Mekhi Becton is one of the starting tackles. Aaron Rodgers obviously is better than what they've had in a very long time. And if he's motivated and they're blocking for him, I'm going to be wrong about this prediction. I think that their defense is really good. They have the best corner in the league in Sauce Gardner. And they really are a team that really needs to perform, because Robert Saleh could be gone if this team doesn't make the postseason like I predict here. And coming in the cellar of this division with a record of 9-8, I have the New England Patriots. I think this is the only division where I have the last place team with the winning record. I think that Mac Jones will play better. I think the offensive line will be a little bit better. The weapons around Mac should be better. And the most important thing with New England is that they hired a competent coaching staff that could work with Bill, most notably Bill O'Brien, an offensive coordinator. If they actually had a above-average coaching staff last year, then they would have probably been the last wild card team in the AFC instead of Miami. So that's like a small little what if there with New England. And their defense is actually pretty good. I like Matt Judon, the pass rusher. Christian Gonzalez is going to be an excellent rookie corner. He's not going to be as good as Sauce Gardner, but I think he might be a notch below that, which could put him in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. So before we move on to the next division, biggest X factor in this entire division is Tua Tagovailoa's health. And I think the biggest question mark in this entire division is the Jets' offensive line. And what's guaranteed to be better is New England's coaching staff. The AFC North. So let's just call that gimmick three things after each division. So the AFC North, I have winning the division with a record of 11-2. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I have another surprise division winner here. The team that most people expect to finish last in this division, I have winning the division. I have a 6-1 future on them to win this division from a long time ago. And now it's all the way down to plus 470 because more people are recognizing what I saw back in May. A quarterback in Kenny Pickett that I think is going to make a year 2 leap. A wide receiver in George Pickens that I think is going to make a year 2 leap. A good running back duo and Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. An improved offensive line. Broderick Jones, good draft pick. Pass rush is amazing. TJ Watt healthy the whole year. If TJ Watt was healthy the whole year last year, they probably make the playoffs. So that's another team like New England where it's like a what-if kind of thing. And then Alex Highsman's a good pass rusher, too. He just got paid. Secondary's good. Joey Porter, I think, is going to be an excellent rookie corner. And obviously, Minka Fitzpatrick's arguably the best safety in the game. Although I had him second behind Derwin James, but you can make a case he's the top safety in the league. And they have a really good special teams with Chris Boswell at kicker. And then one thing I forgot to mention with New England, a rookie punter and a rookie kicker, which could be a little risky for them. Coming in second in the AFC North, I have with a record of 11-6 overall. As a wild card, the Cincinnati Bengals. Same situation here, 2 11-6 teams. I chose Pittsburgh over Cincinnati because Cincinnati has the issue with Joe Burrow that he did not play in the preseason and he may not be healthy right away, and that might cost them a couple of wins early on in the season. But I do love Joe Burrow. I think he's the second best quarterback in the entire league behind Patrick Mahomes. They have a great receiving core with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and obviously T. Higgins. And then Joe Mixon, I guess that situation took care of itself, so he's going to play. Offensive line, they added Orlando Brown. That was their big-ticket free agent this offseason. Defensively, pass rush is okay. Secondary, they have some pieces there. But I think their defense was stronger 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl than it is now. And another reason why I have Pittsburgh ahead of them is because I like Pittsburgh's defense better than Cincinnati's defense. And I think it's because of the presence of Watt and Fitzpatrick. And there's nobody on Cincinnati's defense that is as good as those two guys. In third in the AFC North, I have the record of 10-7, the Baltimore Ravens. 10-7 and no playoffs is a rarity in the AFC. in a regular year, but the AFC is better than ever this year, so you're going to have a ton of 10 and 9 win teams, a ton of teams with winning records not in the postseason. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams with winning records in the in the AFC that are not making the postseason, and that's a lot. The entire AFC side with the winning record, the Ravens, and a couple more, which I'll get to. So the Ravens, Lamar got paid. I still don't trust the system and the players they put around Lamar, or more so the players in the system, but Odell Beckham Jr. is not what he was with the Giants, and he isn't even, or I don't think he's going to be what he was in that Rams run a couple years ago. J.K. Dobbins, I'm not a big fan of. He's always hurt. Gus Edwards, nice backup running back. Mark Andrews is the only reliable weapon offensively for the Ravens. Rashard Bateman needs to make a leap. Zay Flowers needs to be an impact rookie. Offensive line's pretty good. I like Ronnie Stanley, the tackle. Defense, they have a lot of aging guys on defense, like Jason Pierre-Paul, and I think is Calais Campbell on the Ravens. There's somebody that's a big name on Baltimore on their defense that I was just like, oh, I was surprised that guy is still kind of lurking in the league. Michael Pierce is still there, which is amazing. And Patrick Queen is somebody that needs to improve. I know he got better last year, but he needs to take another step. And obviously, the big addition at the trade deadline was Roquan Smith, who made their defense better, and they don't make the playoffs without him last year. Marlon Humphrey's already hurt, and that's a big reason why I don't have Baltimore in the postseason, and plus they're in an absolutely loaded division and a loaded conference, so there's going to be a couple good teams that miss, obviously. And then Justin Tucker's still around, too. So, John Harbaugh gets his 10 wins, but not in the postseason. And coming in the cellar, I have at the record of 8-9, the Cleveland Browns. I almost gave Cleveland a winning record, but then there would have been too many AFC teams with a winning record. I just think there's a ton of parity in the NFL right now. I know there's a couple of truly awful teams, but we'll get to those later, and most of those are in these next couple divisions we will talk about. But Deshaun Watson, is he the same guy from the Texans that led them to the division round a couple years ago? I'm not so sure. Cedric Tillman, rookie receivers, Amari Cooper are going to be as good as he was in Dallas. That offensive line is solid, but some guys like Jedrick Wills really haven't taken that next step yet. Defense, Myles Garrett's a beast. We know that. He's one of the best in the business. And he is somebody that I just realized I left off my my rankings, and I feel really bad. Which is weird. Because I don't see his name here, Myles Garrett. But I really do think that the Browns have a shot to be better than expected. But it comes down to Watson for me. And their secondary has some names in there. And I just think that the Cleveland Browns are a team that tends to disappoint all the time. And I just realized something. I didn't put any Brown players in my defensive end rankings. Apologies to Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. All right, three things for the AFC North. The X factor to me is Deshaun Watson. If he's what he was a couple years ago, they can win the division. The sneaky storyline, Kevin Stefanski, if the Browns get off to a slow start, is he the first coach fired potentially? I feel like a lot of these are related to the Browns. And the last one is the health of Joe Burrow. He missed the preseason, obviously. Let's see if he's the same guys we saw the last couple years. The AFC South. Coming in first in the division, I have the record of 11-6. The Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them fourth in the AFC. Trevor Lawrence is going to be better than he was a year ago. They get Calvin Ridley as they acquired him last year, and he will play for the Jags. I don't know if he's going to be the same guy or not. Travis Etienne's going to be better, I think. Christian Kirk, good pickup, even though that contract is terrible. Evan Ingram turns out to be a good player for them. Their offensive line, low-key, isn't very good. Defensively, they have a lot of young guys. Trayvon Walker are banking on to make a leap. Josh Allen's really good. He's one of the more underrated defensive players in the entire NFL. And their secondary, to me, isn't very good either. So, the Jaguars could be a flawed division winner, but this is a pick for Trevor Lawrence because that's how much I appreciate him. Coming in second in this division, I have the record of 9-8, the Tennessee Titans, another team with the winning record I do not have in the postseason. Derrick Henry is a guy that I feel like is a forgotten star in the league. Nobody really talks about him anymore, as everyone looks at other guys as the best running back in the league other than him, like Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley. Like, those guys are being talked about more so than Derrick Henry. I think that the Titans have the best coach in the division in Vrabel. And that's all due respect to Doug Peterson, who won a Super Bowl, but I don't like what he did in his last Eagles season. And to me, that still serves in recent memory. And Vrabel's gotten the Titans to overachieve year after year. Ryan Tannehill, I think, is going to be better than he was a year ago. The offensive line, to me, is a question mark with the Titans. They have some guys on defense that I like, but not really love. I like Jeffrey Simmons, their interior pass rusher. Coming in third in the division, I have the record of 5-12, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is one of the worst teams in the league. Jim Irsay is just probably the worst owner in the league right now. He's just awful, and Peyton Manning made him look like a good owner for a number of years, as did Andrew Luck. And now, like, the Colts feel like a cursed team. Like, ever since Andrew Luck retired, that franchise has not really, I don't want to say been relevant, because they were in the postseason once with Phil Rivers, but they're just really aren't, like, they don't really matter in the NFL like they did with Luck and Manning. Anthony Richardson, rookie quarterback, we'll see how he does. Maybe he's a fantasy sleeper this year. Jonathan Taylor, does he come back? Does he get traded? I don't trust their receivers or their tight ends. Their offensive line's not as good as it used to be. I feel like the Colts could be a team that's a seller at the deadline. Obviously, Taylor being one guy. Defensively, they have some good players. Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner. And then they lose Kenny Rogers to that the gambling suspension. Then they cut him. And then they trade away Stephon Gilmore to Dallas. So I think the Colts are a mess. Although I think their coach, Shane Steichen, who comes over from Philadelphia, might actually turn out to be good. So we'll see. And in the cellar of the AFC South, I have the record of 4-13, the Houston Texans. I think the Texans are going to suck. But I think for the first time in a long time, they'll show promise. And that's because of the arrivals of C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson on each side of the ball. 2 impact rookies. I don't think they'll sweep rookies of the year like the Jets did last year. But they are going to both show some promise, I think. And Stroud, I don't think, has a good offensive line. He has 2 good tackles, but the interior of the line stinks. Although Shaq Mason isn't bad, but he might be on the back end of his career. I don't love their receivers. I like the running back, Pierce. They get Dalton Schultz from Dallas. I'm not a big Dalton Schultz fan. I feel like he was a product of Dak and the Cowboys. And on defense, I think Anderson's going to have an immediate impact. I think that the safety or the defensive back they took in the draft last year, Derek Stingley's going to make a year 2 jump. So I think the Texans, for the first, like I said, they're going to show a lot of promise. And I like D'Amico Ryans. He did a good job with the 49ers. And we'll see how he turns out as a head coach. And in this, all right, we just talked about the Texans. All right, so 3 keys for this division. The wild card in this division is, believe it or not, it's weird to say this, Calvin Ridley. I feel like he's the wild card and the X factor. If he reverts back to the guy that was putting up big numbers on Atlanta several years ago, then the Jaguars are going to eclipse 11-6. Another key for this division, Colts versus Texans for the Tankathon. They're going to be 2 teams. It's funny. This year, I think we're going to see we'll see tanking for Caleb Williams. We're also going to see tanking for Marvin Harrison Jr., who might be the 2nd overall pick in the draft, if not the 3rd, depending on who gets 2nd and who maybe Drake May out of North Carolina might be the 2nd overall pick. I think the Texans traded their first rounder to Arizona, so they're going to be out of it. But if the Colts are really bad and say the Texans show some promise like I think they might, the Colts could be tanking for Marvin Harrison Jr. to be the WR1 for Anthony Richardson down the road. So keep an eye on the Colts as a Marvin Harrison tanking team. And then the third thing is Tennessee. If Tannehill, say if Tannehill is a B, rather than last year, I feel like he was like a C-. I don't think Tannehill was good last year. If he's as good as he was, say, 2 years ago, the Titans might actually win this division, if not come close. Okay, next up is the AFC West. Coming in first in this division, the number 1 overall seed, 12-5 record, the Kansas City Chiefs, the only team in the AFC I have winning 12 games. The Chiefs can absolutely win 13. I almost picked them to win 13 games, but I think that the AFC is too tough of a conference, and the Chiefs obviously have a first-place schedule. And they play the Eagles, too, in the Super Bowl rematch. So Mahomes obviously is the best football player on planet Earth. I mean, no doubt about it. Isaiah Pacheco really came on last year as a strong running back. You have the receivers, which is a big question mark. Kadarius Toney, is he the WR1 of the season? Will it be Sky Moore? But yeah, those are questions I have for the Chiefs. Obviously, Kelsey's really their WR1, but he's a tight end. Offensive line's good. I know they lost Orlando Brown But they did pick up former Buck Donovan Smith and the Jawan Taylor of the Jaguars, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I think they gave him too much money, but Mahomes makes every O-lineman look good, except for in that Super Bowl against the Bucs. Defensively, the question there is Chris Jones. Will he be back on Thursday night for the opener against the Lions or not? Because he's holding out. And they have a lot of young guys at linebacker and at the defensive back position. So those guys you would think will take a step up. And then Harrison Butker's still their kicker. Coming in second in this division, I have with the record of 10-7. I have them getting the final playoff spot in the AFC, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. So I went the Chargers over the Ravens simply because the Chargers have a better roster from top to bottom, and the Ravens have too many question marks. Justin Herbert's obviously still around. He's going to be good for a very, very long time. Really good offensive line. Rashawn Slater back from injury. Corey Linsley is someone that was hurt throughout last year, too. They had Quentin Johnson to their wide receiver room with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Austin Eckler's back at running back. Defensively, Joey Bosa's still there. Khalil Mack's still there. Although Khalil Mack is low-key getting old. Secondary, J.C. Jackson. He should be better and bounce back from his injury. And then you also have Derwin James in the secondary, who's awesome. Asante Samuel's a promising player as well. But we always say this is the Chargers, so it feels like that's a team that usually folds when it matters. And Brandon Staley's still there as head coach, as he's a hot seat coach. Coming in third in the division, I have with the record of 9-8, the Denver Broncos. This record projection I'm a little skeptical about, only because of the holes on the roster and some potential downside with Russell Wilson. There's talk that Jarrett Stidham might take over for Russ if Russ doesn't bounce back. But who knows with Russ? They get the running back that missed most of last year at the torn ACL, Javonte Williams. And then, obviously, the receiver from Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy, I feel like, is always hurt. They lose Tim Patrick yet again to a torn ACL. Tight end position's a little bit of a question mark. They trade for Will Lutz, the kicker. So that's an upgrade over Brandon McManus. That was Sean Payton's guy in New Orleans. And then defensively, they're not as good after they trade away Bradley Chubb. Secondary's good with Justin Simmons. And then the one position, or one area I forgot's offensive line. They have a good tackle, Garrett Bowles. And then they signed the former 49er guard, Mike McGlinchey. So we'll see how that works out. Or was he a tackle? McGlinchey's a tackle, my mistake. But the reason why I picked him with the winning record is because it's Sean Payton. And I think he is a really good coach still. And coming in the cellar, I have with the record of 5-12, the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this team's a mess. They are in play to have the worst record in the league. I think the Raiders are going to be in the Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. sweepstakes. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is now their quarterback instead of Derek Carr. They trade away Darren Waller. Hunter Renfrow is still there. Josh Jacobs is still there. Both those guys might get traded. Chandler Jones might get traded. But yeah, they feel like this is a deadline seller to me. and the rest of the roster is pretty much a mess. And the kicker, Daniel Carlson, I think has trade value too. If there's a good contender with a bad kicking situation, I could see Carlson being an upgrade for somebody. All right, keys for this division. All right, the wild card in this division is Russell Wilson. If he bounces back, then the Broncos are going double-digit games and potentially make the postseason. If the Chargers get off to a slow start, could Brandon Staley be the first coach fired? And maybe they potentially ride the hot wave with an intern coach and they do good. And then the other thing is, I think another potential X factor is Kadarius Toney. If he stays healthy the whole year and has a breakout year, he'll emerge as the Chiefs WR1, and that will make Joe Shane look bad as the Giants general manager for the first time ever. If that trade doesn't make him look bad already, but I get why they trade him because he's always hurt. All right, the NFC East is next. I have winning this division with a record of 12-5, and I have the number 2 seed in the conference, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's disrespectful to go against the reigning conference champions in this division. They have arguably the best roster in the division. They are an injury risk team, but they stayed healthy for most of the year last year. Jalen Hurts, to me, is an MVP candidate. The running back by committee thing usually works because of that great offensive line they have. 2 really good receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Arguably the best duo in the league. A really good tight end in Dallas Goedert. We talked about the line already. Jordan Mailata and Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson. Defensively, they add Jalen Carter to the mix with Fletcher Cox and all those guys, Nakobe Dean. So the Eagles are loaded. Obviously, Hassan Reddick, who was a really good ad by Howie Roseman when they got him. And then the secondary is arguably the weak spot with the Eagles. I mean, you could argue running back too, but secondary, I like Darius Slay. Avonte Maddox has been pretty good. So I think the Eagles are in okay shape in the secondary. And then Jake Elliott is one of the best kickers in the NFC. And Nick Sirianni, obviously, is a really good coach. Coming in second in the division with the record of 11-6 and a wild card spot, the Dallas Cowboys. I picked the Cowboys to miss the postseason last year, and I completely forgot about that. And that's I owe them an apology for that because I did pick them to miss the postseason, and they made it. But they still ended up losing early in the postseason. They lost, I believe, in round 2. Yes, because they beat the Bucs, and then they lost to the 49ers because the Eagles beat the Giants. So, yeah, they did lose to the 49ers in the divisional round. Dak Prescott, obviously still there. Ezekiel Elliott gone. Tony Pollard's now the full-time running back. Amari Cooper gone. Brandon Cooks in. I think that's a downgrade. But CeeDee Lamb's one of the best receivers in the league, hands down. And Michael Gallup is one of the more underrated receivers in the league. I think they'll be fine at tight end. The Cowboys always produce good tight ends. Their offensive line's still really good. Tyron Smith has to be better. Tyler Smith's a good player that they drafted last year. And then obviously Zach Martin, the best interior lineman arguably in the whole league. Defense might be the strength of their team, though. One of the best league's pass rushers in Micah Parsons. Leighton Vander Esch is a guy that was good early in his career, but I feel like has kind of regressed in a way. They pick up Stephon Gilmore for the secondary to have him and Trayvon Diggs now together. So the Cowboys, I think, are in excellent shape defensively. Coming in third in the division, I have the record of 9-8 and grabbing the final wild card spot in the NFC, the New York Football Giants. I came very close to picking another team instead of the Giants for this last playoff spot, but people are going to say I went with my heart here instead of my brain. But the reality of the situation is Brian Daboll is the coach of the New York Football Giants, and he gets a lot out of his players, as we saw last year, and the team's better than they were a year ago with some of the additions they made. So that's why I ended up going with the Giants, and I think they get some lucky schedule breaks too, including getting the Eagles twice in weeks 16 and 18, with the possibility of week 18 having the division wrapped up. So that's why I went with New York over some other teams in the conference, which I'll talk about in a second, for the last playoff spot. I only have one other team in the NFC with a winning record that's not in the postseason. I'll get to them in a couple of minutes. Daniel Jones got paid. Saquon Barkley's on the franchise tag. They had Jalen Hyatt to the receiver room. Isaiah Hodgins' career year last year. Darius Slayton, not the biggest fan of, but who I am a big fan of is Darren Waller, who has been awesome in training camp and I think will become a huge weapon for Daniel Jones. And the offensive line, they have one of the best left tackles in the league in Andrew Thomas. The interior of the line is not great on paper, but Jones and Barkley, with their ability to run, make it look better than it is sometimes. And Evan Neal needs to be better in year 2 than he was in year 1 defensively. Their pass rush is okay. I think Wink Martindale is one of the best DCs in the league. Leonard Williams is a solid pass rusher. They added Bobby Okereke to their defense. Their secondary, I like Xavier McKinney, the young safety. Deontay Banks was their first round pick. So we'll see with the Giants on defense. But I do think that Daboll and his staff get the most out of their players. And in the cellar of the division, I have the record of 5-12, the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, tough luck being in the NFC East. Could end up the best last place team in the NFC. Although there's another NFC team that I have finishing in last dive with a better record than the Commanders. We'll get to them in a couple minutes. Sam Howell's now their quarterback. Their running back room, Antonio Gibson, they keep waiting for him to make a jump. He hasn't done that yet. They obviously have Brian Robinson. His story is interesting, and glad that he's okay. Terry McLaurin, one of the more underrated receivers in the league. He's just stuck in Washington. Logan Thomas, tight end, that really hasn't produced over the last couple of years. Their offensive line is worse than it used to be. Charles Leno Jr. is there. So that's like a competent lineman they have. Brandon Scherf's not there anymore. Defensively, the front seven's really good. Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. Obviously Chase Young. And then they had add Jalen Davis to that. Secondary isn't bad either. Kendall Fuller, Cameron Krul. So, interesting team. But they have probably the worst coach in the division in Ron Rivera. And the best coach in the division, we just talked about the Giants and Brian Daboll. Before we get to the NFC North, 3 keys for this division. To me, the wild card, believe it or not, is what if Sam Howell's good. And he and Terry McLaurin are clicking. Maybe the Giants disappoint. Maybe the Eagles have some injuries. Dallas might disappoint. You never know. Maybe the Commanders sneak up on some people this year. That's a one random what if key. 2, was last year the peak of Daniel Jones potentially? I sure as hell hope not. But I believe that Daboll is the right guy for Daniel Jones and is a big reason why he got paid. And number 3, he is the Eagles with some guys low-key getting older on that roster. Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, all those guys are getting older. But the guys that they have on their roster that are young and are more than capable of filling their roles. But the one that might end up hurting might be if Lane Johnson declines. All right, the NFC North, I have winning the division with the record of 10-7 with the number 4 seed in the NFC. The Minnesota Vikings. Yes, I have the Vikings winning the NFC North for the second consecutive year. They are a team that I think is very similar to the team I'm finishing in second. I pretty much see these two teams in the mirror, and they're very similar. And the difference is that one team has Justin Jefferson, and the other team does not. And Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in football, hands down. He's one of the best 5 players in the entire league. Kirk Cousins is very solid, and he's somebody that is better than his reputation. Their offensive line's better. Alexander Madison's now their full-time running back. He might have a breakout year. TJ Hawkinson, really good tight end pickup they made last year. Their defense, what's important for them is that Danielle Hunter's back. He's awesome, and he's a nemesis on defense. And the secondary to me is a mess. They can obviously trade for somebody that is on a bad team. Like, maybe somebody like Kendall Fuller becomes available. Like, if Washington falls out of it. Like, he could fit on Minnesota. Maybe Marcus Peters on the Raiders. Maybe somebody like trying to think of guys that could be traded that could fill the void that Patrick Peterson left in Minnesota. All right. Second place with the record of 9-8, the team that I have in the NFC with the winning record, but not in the postseason, the Detroit Lions. It was between them and the Giants, but I chose the Giants because of Daboll. And I still don't love the Lions coach. This was a team that got off to a slow start last year, but they got hot at the end of the year and beat up on some bad teams and beat up on teams that lost guys because of injury. But people say the same thing about the Steelers. But guess what? The Steelers have more talent than the Lions, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And like I said earlier, not many teams in the NFL have a duo on defense like the Steelers do with Watt and Minka. With the Lions, Jared Goff had a really nice resurgent year. I still think that the best quarterback in the division is probably Kirk Cousins, amazingly enough. So we have that. Jefferson is the best receiver, but the second best receiver in this division is probably Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions, who I like. Jahmyr Gibbs, questionable draft pick at where they took him. Jack Campbell, questionable draft pick at where they took him on defense. I think their best rookie is going to potentially be Sam Laporta, the tight end. Offensive line's good, led by Taylor Decker. Defense, Aiden Hutchinson might get better, but I don't trust their secondary, and I really don't trust their linebackers. Third in the division, I have with the record of 8-9 to the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love takes over for Aaron Rodgers. They still have a lot of holdovers of the Rodgers era. They have the two running back horse with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Really good offensive line led by David Bakhtiari. A lot of youth at the receivers and tight ends positions. So they're going to be relying on a lot of those guys. And their defense has some guys. Preston Smith's still there. And obviously Jair Alexander in the secondary, who's awesome. So we'll see about Green Bay. In the Southern Division, I have the record of 6-11, the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields expected to improve this year. DJ Moore's added. But is he a real true number one corner? Or receiver, I mean. We'll find that out this year. And then they still have Darnell Mooney. Khalil Herbert takes over as the RB1. I liked him last year. I think he's going to have a good fantasy season. Cole Kmet's the tight end. Offensive line still stinks, although they drafted Darnell Wright to make it better. Their defense is really bad, especially after they traded away Roquan Smith. They do add Tremaine Edmonds to improve the linebackers. Don't love the secondary. So the defense, to me, is the big question with the Bears. So three things with this division. All right. What if Jordan Love's actually really good? If Jordan Love is a B+, the Packers can absolutely win that division. But the reason why I didn't pick them is because I don't trust Jordan Love, and they don't have a proven receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown and obviously Justin Jefferson. The second thing, what if Justin Fields makes a big leap? Can the Bears potentially win 8 or 9 games? And then the last question of this division actually is the Packers. Again, Matt LaFleur. Is he really a good coach? Or was he a product of Rodgers? I think that is an answer we're going to get this year as well. All right, the NFC South. I have winning this division with a record of 10-7, the number 3 seed in the NFC, the New Orleans Saints. This is the one new playoff team I have from this conference this year. I almost went with Detroit instead of the Giants, but I did not go there, obviously. And that kind of spoils into my next division, which I think most of you would have predicted. So the Saints, obviously, Derek Carr's a quarterback. That's an upgrade over what they had last year with Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. Dennis Allen's their coach. He's awful, as we know. Michael Thomas back. Alvin Kamara suspended to start the year. The offensive line has some youth that is getting better in the interior. Andres Pete's still there at tackle. Trevor Penning's the other tackle now. Defense. I think the Saints' defense might actually be pretty good. The linebackers really underrated. Demario Davis. Pete Werner was good last year. Marshawn Lattimore's a forgotten corner in this league. That's awesome. And then Cam Jordan, really underrated defensive end. So the Saints' defense might be better than their offense, amazingly enough. Coming in second in this division, I have the record of 7-10, the Atlanta Falcons. This is a team I was so tempted to pick with a lower record. I think this team's going to disappoint this year. A lot of people think that they're going to have a winning record. I do not. To me, this is a fantasy team, not an actual football team. Desmond Ritter's their quarterback. He's probably one of the worst 5 quarterbacks in the league. Bijan Robinson is added to this offense. He'll be the RB1. Tyler Alliger, who was awesome last year, will be the RB2. You have Drake London and Kyle Pitts as big threats offensively. Although Pitts, to me, has not lived up to the hype in the NFL. The offensive line, I think, is improved, which is a good thing for their running game and maybe good for Desmond Ridder. Defensively, they have some names like Grady Jarrett, and they added some guys in free agency. But that's a unit that's not a smash unit. I think that is a potential trash unit if certain guys aren't healthy and whatnot. So the Falcons, interesting team nevertheless. Coming in third in the division, I have the record of 5-12. The Carolina Panthers. This team looked awful in the preseason, awful. And I was gonna pick this team to finish second in the division, but I got spooked off. And I realized their roster's not as good as I thought it was. Bryce Young, rookie quarterback, obviously. Rookie quarterbacks don't always succeed right away, unless if you're Russell Wilson or Andrew Luck. And even Kenny Pickett last year. But although Pickett did not make the playoffs, Joe Burrow's first full year, they were awesome. Mahomes' first full year, the Chiefs were obviously awesome. But I don't expect Bryce Young to be awesome. That offensive line's not good. They have that second-year guy, Ikem Ekwonu, who needs to make a leap. Taylor Moton's still there. Adam Thielen's their WR1, but he's not the same guy as he was with the Vikings. Their running back situation, Miles Sanders comes in, but I think he's a product of Philadelphia. Hayden Hurst is their starting tight end. Defensively, I like Brian Burns and I like Derek Brown. I like Jeremy Chin. I like J.C. Horn. But that offense is just a mess, and I think that their defense could be wasted potentially. And coming in the cellar in this division, I have the record of 4-13, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Bucs are awful. I think there's a possibility they end up with a top 3 pick in the draft. I actually have them with a top 3 pick in the draft. I just don't know what number. This is obviously a Caleb Williams, Drake May team because Baker's not going to be the long-term guy. And let's be honest, he's probably not in the league right now if he doesn't have that drive for the Rams against the Raiders. And the funny thing is that they have a lot of holdover guys on the team, kind of like Green Bay does, except Green Bay's roster's better. And Jordan Love is somebody that's more of an unknown rather than a known in Baker at this point. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans still there. Rachaad White's the starting running back. Question at tight end. Ryan Jensen out for the year. Defensively, they still have Vita Vea. They still have Antoine Winfield. They still have some building blocks on defense that they'll build around. But Levante David, to me, is a guy that I feel like is going to get traded at the deadline to somewhere. So him and Mike Evans, I feel like, are going to be traded. Maybe even Chris Godwin. So that's going to be a blow it up at the deadline team, similar to the Raiders and similar to a couple teams in this next division I'm going to talk about. Keys to the division. If Desmond Ridder makes a leap, does Atlanta challenge New Orleans or even win that division? But what if Bryce Young's good right away? What if? So if he's good right away, maybe they go 7-10 or 8-9, and that preseason was just an overreaction kind of a deal. And then the third one is Michael Thomas. If he really turns back the clock, then the Saints are going to go 12-5 potentially, maybe 11-6. All right, the NFC West, last but not least, in terms of divisions. I have winning the division with the record of 12-5, the San Francisco 49ers. I think the 49ers, when healthy, are arguably the best team in the league. Brock Purdy took over as the starting quarterback last year, and he was awesome. And they have Christian McCaffrey, who's a do-it-all running back. Elijah Mitchell is still there. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk at receiver, and then you have George Kittle at tight end. An awesome offensive line led by Trent Williams. They lose Mike McGlinchey, but is that really that big of a loss? And then you have the defense. Javon Hargrave's a big loss in the interior of the defense. But I think they have the talent to overcome that. Eric Armstead's still there. They have one of the best linebackers in the league, and Fred Warner. Their secondary, to me, has some question marks. Maybe they acquire somebody in a trade, like a Marcus Peters or a Kendall Fuller or somebody like that. I feel like them in Minnesota are going to be going for corners at the trade deadline this year. And then, to me, a big question with the 49ers, the kicking situation. Jake Moody comes in replacing Robbie Gould, and Robbie Gould was really reliable. So I think that could be some troublesome for the 49ers. Coming in second in division, I have with the record of 10-7 with the number 6 seed in the NFC. And by the way, I have the 49ers first. So the 6th seed in the NFC, 10-7 record, the Seattle Seahawks. Now the Seahawks were really good last year. They earned my respect. Pete Carroll. It turns out that Russell Wilson might have been the problem there all along. The Ewing theory worked out for them last year, except they didn't win the Super Bowl, but it still did. Geno Smith is back, and he got paid. They add Jackson Smith and Jigba to the receiver room with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Their offensive line to me has questions. Charles Cross needs to make a leap. 2 young running backs in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, the rookie from UCLA. And then they have the tight end, Noah Fant, that they got from Denver in the Wilson trade. Defensively, they lose Shelby Harris. That's a big loss. But they have some other guys on defense that I like. Jordan Brooks needs to make that jump for them on defense. I really like their secondary, though. That, to me, is the strength of their defense. It's not the Legion of Boom like it was years ago. But I really do like some of their guys on defense. Tariq Woolen I like. And obviously, Devon Witherspoon comes in for them. And then they got Jamal Adams back from injury. And Quandre Diggs is a decent safety as well. Jason Myers, decent kicker. Coming in third in the division. I really don't want to talk about the next 2 teams. I will for a little bit. 5-12 overall, the Los Angeles Rams. It's sad. It's amazing what can change in a year. A year ago, we were talking about the Rams as the reigning Super Bowl champions. And then they go downhill. I've never seen a former Super Bowl champion fall apart this fast. I mean, we saw it happen with the Giants in 2013 after they won the Super Bowl in the 2011 season. 2012, they went 9-7. 2013, they went 7-9, and it was 6-10. Then 6-10 again. Then they went, I think, 10-6 or 11-5, and then they fell apart in the Eli era after that second Super Bowl. And this Rams thing is arguably worse than that because at least the Giants had a winning year after they won the Super Bowl. I know they didn't make the postseason the year after they won the Super Bowl in 2011. But the Giants won not one but 2 Super Bowls in the Eli Manning, Tom Coughlin era. This is worse, and arguably this Rams team was more talented than those Giants teams with Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford, but all those guys are in decline now. Sean McVay's still awesome. We'll see what happens with the Rams this year. Their offensive line stinks. Their defense is a one-man show that has Aaron Donald. They traded Jalen Ramsey away. Kupp's not even healthy. coming in last in the division, 4-13, the Arizona Cardinals. This team's the worst in the league. Kyler Murray, will we even see him all year? Maybe, maybe not. They're, to me, in the driver's seat for Caleb Williams. It's not even close. And they're trying to tell you that what they're trying to do. Like, who's starting at quarterback for them in week 1? Josh Dobbs? I mean, come on. And then they're obviously going to trade people at the deadline. Zach Ertz is going to get traded. James Conner might get traded. Budda Baker might get traded. That's going to be a big get for somebody at the trade deadline. Not Paris Campbell. He's a building block for them. DJ Humphries, I think, will get moved. So they're a blow it up team for sure. And then 3 keys to this division. Wild card Kyler Murray. If he's back sooner than expected, maybe the Cardinals play themselves out of Caleb Williams. But if I'm the Cardinals, I'd sit him the whole year and then trade him in the offseason to, like, the Buccaneers or the Falcons or somebody like that need a quarterback upgrade potentially. Number 2, Jamal Adams. If he returns to form, Seattle's defense takes another level. And then the other one, what if the Rams are healthy the whole year? Just what if? Like, what if Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp's, like, win games by themselves and the Rams play themselves out of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes? All right, the playoffs. So the AFC wildcard, so I have the 7th seed Los Angeles Chargers at the 2 seed Pittsburgh Steelers. Should be a fun game. Justin Herbert against Kenny Pickett. Difference is that I could totally see this being a night game with the Steeler crowd going nuts, home field advantage. TJ Watt might be the best player on the field in this game, so let's give me the 2 seed Steelers over the 7 seed Los Angeles Chargers. Next, 6 seed Buffalo Bills against the 3 seed Miami Dolphins, rematch from a year ago. This time in Miami. Josh Allen against Tua. But the difference here is that I think the Bills will be healthy this time of year, unlike last year. So give me the 6 seed Buffalo Bills over the 3 seed Miami Dolphins. One more AFC wildcard. So the 5 seed Cincinnati Bengals at the 4 seed Jacksonville Jaguars. So we have the 2020 number 1 overall pick against the 2021 number 1 overall pick. 2 of the best, arguably 5 quarterbacks in the league. You would think this is a shootout, but at this time I think the Bengals will be healthy. So give me the 5 seed Bengals over the 4 seed Jaguars. NFC wildcard, 17 New York Giants against the 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles, rematch from a year ago, where the Eagles absolutely destroyed the Giants in the division round, except we have this in the wildcard round. I feel like it's going to be another night game. Philadelphia crowd's going to go nuts. They're a better team than the Giants, so give me the Eagles over the Giants for the 2nd consecutive year. 6 seed Seattle Seahawks at the number 3 seed New Orleans Saints should be a fun game. The Seahawks were in that game against the 49ers for a little bit last year. I think they learned from that. Don't believe in the Saints team. Give me Pete Carroll over Dennis Allen every day. So give me the 6 seed Seattle Seahawks over the 3 seed New Orleans Saints. And then the 5 seed Dallas Cowboys against the 4 seed Minnesota Vikings. Dallas absolutely creamed Minnesota last season in a late afternoon game with Nance and Romo on the call. I feel like this is going to be the Nance-Romo game in Wild Card Weekend, although I would not rule out the Bengal-Jaguar game for that. But I think this is a shootout. Kirk Cousins' final game as a Viking, or final home game as a Viking, potentially. Let's just say final game period. I'm going with the Cowboys over the Vikings, so 5/4 there. AFC divisional round, you have the 6 seed Buffalo Bills at the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. So a rematch of the 13-2 game here in the divisional round yet again. but betting against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is very hard, and I don't see Mahomes losing against the Bills in that somewhat overrated defense. So I'm going to go with the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs over the 6 seed Buffalo Bills, and then you have the 5 seed Cincinnati Bengals at the 2 seed Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this will be an awesome game, awesome atmosphere. Potentially a night game, division game. But this is where I think Joe Burrow thrives the most in the postseason. On the road, where the pressure is off a little bit. Maybe the Bengals are favored in this potential game. I'm going to take them over the Steelers in the AFC divisional round here. So 5-2 seeding upset. But probably not a betting upset. The NFC divisional round, I have the 6 seed Seattle Seahawks at the 1 seed San Francisco 49ers. So a rematch of the wild card round except in the divisional round. Same outcome. I'm going with the Niners over the Seahawks, but in a closer game. And then the 5 seed Dallas Cowboys at the 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles. Awesome divisional round game. This will probably be would this be in theory Nance and Romo? You would know this will probably be in any other year this would have been Buck and Aikman in the 440 spot. But maybe it's Nance and Romo in the 440 spot or Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. Great division game, nevertheless in Philadelphia. I just think the Eagles are a better team with better weapons. And I think that the home field advantage will matter. So give me the Philadelphia Eagles over the Dallas Cowboys. The AFC Championship, 5 seed Cincinnati Bengals at the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is an awesome game, awesome rematch. I think that Joe Burrow, like I said, is just money in these games. And the wild card here is that the AFC title game will be first, which I think will benefit the Bengals because the Chiefs are just better at night at home rather than the day, and that's what makes the Chiefs vulnerable here, and Joe Burrow and company not. So I'm going to go with the 5 seed Cincinnati Bengals over the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. This will have a wild card team in the Super Bowl. And then the NFC Championship game, I have the 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles at the 1 seed San Francisco 49ers. So 2 rematches of the conference title games from last year I have this year. Talk about coincidences. I think that this is going to be a great rematch. Night game in San Francisco. Brock Purdy healthy. That place is going to be rocking. There might be some Philadelphia fans in San Francisco, which might make me nervous. But I think that McCaffrey, Kittle, Samuel, and Purdy will lead them to a win. So I'm going to go with the 1 seed San Francisco 49ers over the 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC title game. And in the Super Bowl from Vegas. In the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers. In the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals. So your NFC 1 seed against your AFC 5 seed should be an awesome game. It's in Vegas, and the San Francisco fans will travel, which I think will help the 49ers in this game. Quarterback, obviously Cincinnati has that edge of Joe Burrow, but personally the better roster is the 49ers. So my Super Bowl pick for this season, which will be Super Bowl 57. Or Super Bowl 58, my mistake. The San Francisco 49ers over the Cincinnati Bengals. And Super Bowl MVP, let's go with my guy, Christian McCaffrey. All right, and then last part of this long part 1, the awards. MVP, Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen would have won it last year if he didn't get hurt, personally. And I just think the media loves Mahomes. Runner-up, Mahomes. Offensive player of the year, I'm going with Christian McCaffrey, banking on him to stay healthy the whole year and be a monster in that 49ers offense. Runner-up, I will go with Justin Jefferson. Defensive player of the year, I'm going with TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. I love TJ Watt. He's just a monster. Runner-up, Micah Parsons. Offensive rookie of the year, I'm going with Bijan Robinson, so it's a chalky pick right there. Runner-up, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Defensive rookie of the year, I'm going with Christian Gonzalez, so the Patriots are just going with somebody different. Runner-up, Jalen Carter, Philadelphia Eagles. Coach of the year, I'm going with Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have them as the 2 seed in the AFC, winning the AFC North. Tomlin will get the credit for that. Runner-up, Brian Daboll, taking the Giants to the playoffs again. I think that people forgot about them in terms of solid NFC teams. And Daboll's the next big-time coach in this league, if he isn't already. He's a top 5 coach, and I think he's the darling of coaching. So I'm going to go with him as my runner-up. And then the comeback player of the year, I mean, is it disrespectful if you go with someone other than Damar Hamlin because of what happened? I'm going with Damar Hamlin. It's a default pick. It's just amazing that he is going to be back on the field in a week from today when the Bills play the Jets. And he's just a great guy. And we obviously will never forget what happened to Damar that night in Cincinnati. And it's just great to see him back on the field playing again and healthy. And he's a solid player, too. I mean, he's a backup player, but he's solid. And he's somebody that could start on a different team, I think. So, my comeback player of the year is Damar Hamlin. And my runner-up for comeback player of the year, I am going to go with, this is a hard one for runner-up. I mean, I know people are saying Tua because of the concussion stuff, but he played most of the year last year. I mean, Aaron Donald maybe. But my runner-up, I'm going to go with somebody that I just think is going to have a bounce back type of year, and that is going to be Javonte Williams at 50-1, who is awesome on the Broncos before he tore his ACL. So there you have it for part 1 of the 2023 NFL season prediction show. Next up is part 2, which is all the superlatives.